here's a pro tip. You can also ask a question. Hey, do you have any referrals of other speakers that you think would be a good fit for the show? And this is, of course, assuming that you have, let's say, the title of the show or the general theme of the show. Hello, and welcome to Holistic Ambition, where we talk with visionary leaders who are redefining what it means to be ambitious. We cover ways you can live with more well-being, meaning, and fun in your career, business, and relationships. I'm your host, Stephanie Thoma, life coach for ambitious professionals and author of Confident Introvert. Let's talk about podcasts. On a podcast, I'm going to break down the top 16 different steps that I took to create my podcast. So maybe you're kind of like me and you have thought about doing your own podcast for a while, but there wasn't really, or there hasn't yet been that moment where you take action. You're like, okay, yes, let's actually do this. So it kind of reminds me in 2019 when I had this fleeting idea, I want to be an author one day. Maybe I'll write my book now, like my first book. And there was this whole thing, I don't know what I want to be defined by. But I'm like, this is what I'm going to define myself by for the moment. And you know what? It was actually quite similar when it came to launching my first podcast. So I was just sort of back in America after a bunch of traveling, and I met people from all over. And, some of the people, actually, okay, a lot of the people, all the people, pretty cool stories, maybe had their own businesses and embodied different aspects of holistic ambition, which has been my rebrand of the entire year of 2023. And I just kind of, without much of a plan at first, I hopped on a video call with a friend that I made while I was in Lisbon, who lives in Poland. And we did an interview. And, the lighting wasn't ideal. It was not the best interview ever in terms of everything being set up. But you know what? It was the first interview. And from there are several processes that I refined. So step one, start with a decision. Make a decision that, okay, now is the time. Are you completely, perfectly ready? Maybe not, but you've made a decision to get started, and you're going to start taking some massive action steps, one step at a time. So it's kind of like the compound effect where in retrospect, you're like, oh yeah, that was quite the endeavor there, but you're just going to be in flow. And I'm going to share my flow with you. So hopefully it demystifies it a bit. And you really want to be dedicated to the process here. So, certainly writing a book is a dedication to a process. I drafted my first book in 42 days. And gosh, I guess when it comes to the podcast, from the time that I started recording to the time it came out, it was around the same time period. So the second step here is to create a questionnaire. I did mine in Google Forms. Some people like Airtable. There are so many different options. Don't get tripped up on which option you use. But what you want to do is have an idea of the information that you'll want from every speaker. So basic things. Like, of course, their name, their title, their bio, things of that nature. And here's a pro tip. You can also ask a question. Hey, do you have any referrals of other speakers that you think would be a good fit for the show? And this is, of course, assuming that you have, let's say, the title of the show or the general theme of the show. If you have both, that's great. If you just have one, lead with that. Then third up, you're going to create a list of people that you'd like to invite. And I'd like to encourage you to do a combination of people that that you've already met, that maybe they're your friends, maybe they're your acquaintances, maybe you know someone that knows someone who is a good fit for your show. And then also, I want you to get stretchy, get some stretch goals going with some people that maybe you're not close with, maybe you've never met, maybe you don't have a mutual connection, but they would be such a great fit. Put them on the list too. And fourth up is to consider solo episodes. This is something that actually I wasn't even thinking about. I just thought, oh, great, I'm going to have a list of however many people. I'm going to interview a new person every week. And then I was at the Alt Summit right before moving to Austin. And I was talking with this woman about my podcast that was going to be launching the following month. And then she said, "Oh, like what about your own episodes?" And I was like, "Oh no, like I don't need to, I have so many cool people that I want to fit in here." And she was like, "But wait, you have a business, right?" I'm like, "I do." She's like, "Are you the face of your business?" I'm like, "Yep, I am." So, it's even if you're not the face of your business, this is an opportunity to let people behind the veil and get to know you a little bit more. Because I don't know about you, but when I interview, I may story tell a little bit, but ultimately I like to really respect the speaker and let them have the stage. So this gives you an opportunity to let people get to know you better. And currently I do every fourth episode is just me, like, hello, like in this episode right now. So, but in the future, who knows? Maybe it'll become 50-50. You could even do 3 solo episodes and then 1 interview episode. You certainly have more agency when it's just you. You don't need to do all the coordination with, getting people, together in person or maybe using Zoom or something like that. And number 5 is creating a template for outreach. Why reinvent the wheel? Do not make this really long. Make it really easy to reply to. You want to have a sentence that states what the invitation is, have it clearly laid out in the subject, let people know about the time commitment, maybe 1, 2, 3 sentences max, and get in the habit of switching out the name, switching out the company name, maybe adding a personal detail. Of course, if you do know that person, or maybe you don't know them, but you saw a movie they were in, you read a book that they wrote, then go ahead and add that to have a slightly better chance at getting a reply. Number 6 is to track your outreach in a spreadsheet. Okay, so it can get a little bit overwhelming if you're going for numbers. And I would say definitely reach out to at least 10 people to start. Goodness. You want to have a backlog. We'll go into that in a little bit. But to keep it organized, you want to know how you reached out to them. Email is really easy for getting attachments sent over and everything like that. But if you have an existing social media thread with someone and they're not very responsive over email, then you want to go where your person, your guest is, whatever makes it easiest for them. This is a time to be accommodating, especially if you are brand new to the podcasting landscape. And then, you want to track that in your spreadsheet that you can easily refer back to, just with some key information there. And number 7, consider having an in-person and or virtual launch party. So in my case, I had just moved to Austin, Texas, and it was about a month in. So I actually did a combined housewarming virtual party and in-person party and podcast launch because this is a great time to get people to download, listen, like, subscribe, all of that stuff. And if you have them all in a room, and I would say in retrospect, it was a bit much. You don't need to, piggyback and have 2 different things going on in one party. For some reason, I just thought, why not do that? But just make it fun. It can be as formal or informal as you'd like. It can be at a venue. It can literally just be online. There's no right or wrong way. But this also creates more buzz and more hype and more excitement when that first episode drops. And I would also like to encourage you, now that we're here, number 8, to join podcast communities. So you can find these on Facebook. You can find different websites, different clubs, meetups that are dedicated to podcasters. This is not a time to go it alone. This is a time to plug into communities with people who've been doing this for a while, because I went to a podcast meetup actually at that Alt Summit, and met some podcasters. And, it's not actually that hard to get into the top 1% of podcasts. All you need to do is be super consistent. We'll go into that in a bit. But especially when you have the support of other people, and you can learn from what they're doing well, learn from their mistakes, and vice versa, then, it's just another layer here of a type of community that you get to be a part in, that you get to be a leader within. And number 9, you need a host site. So a host site could be Anchor, Spotify. There are so many different options. There are some that are free, some that are paid. Go ahead and find the best one for you. I currently use Spotify. And from there, you can have it pushed out to various different platforms. The audio, I'm not sure. Maybe there are some that also work with video, but I personally have that uploaded separately to YouTube. And number 10 is to commit to consistency. So you want to have a backlog of content. And let's say that you do something like, so I had a schedule of recording in Q1. So that is January, February, March. I recorded every Wednesday and Friday, 1 to 3 interviews each of those days, and then had a backlog to last me pretty much throughout the rest of the entire year, Qs 2, 3, and 4. So yeah, don't be shy with batch recording so that you're not scrambling week of, oh my gosh, I need another episode tomorrow to be consistent with my schedule. Make it easy for yourself by making it temporarily harder for yourself. So anyway, you're committing to consistency by posting weekly for at least a year. So that's, you could decide to do 30 episodes, 50 episodes, 52. I personally might have my first season be 50, and then I am undecided about continuing. But I have read there are people that are influencers in the podcasting space that you need to commit to weekly for 2 years, and then you have a real chance. So, take that as you will. And actually, number 11, batch recording. So we already talked about this. But yeah, just to reiterate, please go ahead and batch record. If you don't have 2 free days of the week, maybe there's a weekend, maybe there's one weekday evening. Let's say your Monday nights are pretty mellow. Maybe you want to have, a block in your calendar dedicated to podcast interviews and recordings during that time. And number 12 is to have a jingle and an intro outro. So you'll notice, especially if you are listening to the podcast or if you're watching this on YouTube, there's still an intro and outro. And the idea is for it to be consistent. The jingle is something that people hear and they can begin to associate it with you. So yeah, it can be an opportunity to get fun. And again, I am totally a fan of being concise. There's no need to make your intro paragraph about your whole life story. Some people do that and it's compelling, but I'm a fan of keeping it more to the point because, take notes from what you like to listen to, right? And number 13, we have talked about this, but not as directly as I'm about to say it right now. Number 13 is to do video and audio and repurpose. So let's say that you have your stuff on iTunes, Spotify, maybe you also have a video on YouTube, for example, then you can get some clips, audio clips, or ideally visual clips, and repurpose them on Instagram, Facebook, Reels, TikTok, whatever it is. And then especially if you're sharing content with you and your speaker, then you both get greater visibility that way. And it's a great promotion for the episode. Number 14 is consider hiring a designer. Unless you naturally are skilled at this, which I'm just going to say, I'm not totally skilled at this. So it has been a game changer. Several years ago when I hired my first designer to have someone that I can just really share my vision with, or here's the brand colors, here's what I want it to look like. And then they can translate that. So, whether that's you, whether that's someone else, you want to have templates. That you can just plug in different images, different speakers, different audio clips, video clips for consistency. So people get to know the brand of your podcast. And number 15 is to even consider tying it in with your email list. So I send weekly email to my list, and Sometimes it's twice a week, but if it is once a week, it's most certainly giving behind the scenes information about the podcast, maybe how I connected with the person that I'm interviewing that week, maybe a little bit more insight than I would give publicly on social media. So, and this also reminds me, if you are here on YouTube, go on over to 5 things to start and grow your email list. 5 things that you need to know. So that's on my channel. And if you don't yet have an email list, or if you're brand new to it or want to grow it further, that will give you some foundational tips. Number 16, last but not least, is events. So we did talk about the combined housewarming podcast launch party, but this goes beyond the launch. You can actually decide to allow people into your virtual recordings. And this is, I would say, if you feel comfortable with having people there, and if you feel comfortable with being able to mute people during the podcast portion. I think it's fun to have a Q&A at the end, make it a ticketed event. I even throw in the option for people to get a VIP ticket that includes a copy of my book, Confident Introvert. So you can really get creative with virtual and in-person events where people get to be a part of the behind the scenes process, and it becomes something that is shared both during and after its creation. And if you do want some help tying all this together, if you're thinking, what is my topic? What is this going to look like? Then yeah, that's something that I do with people in VIP days. We can certainly chat about that. So, reach out to me if that is something that's interesting to you. And I would like to thank you for watching, and consider this your invitation to go ahead and subscribe to be the very first to know of the next Holistic Ambition speaker in our series. Wishing you a wonderful day. Until next time.